Alright guys, so now let's go ahead and let's set up the render for our ocean. So by default, the ocean surface should have connected an ocean surface shader, and the ocean interior would have automatically connected the ocean volume. So if we just go view one of those, we'll have both our shaders here. And you see our ocean surface will be referencing our files here from our spectrum geometry. This is going to be our ocean that we saved out from our ocean geometry here. So that's where it's pulling that. And then also our foam that we're baking out here, that's being referenced by in the ocean shader, the foam here. So this is going to draw all this information and give us all these parameters to direct and render the foam directly on the surface of the water. So we've got our waves, which are driven by our height of our waves automatically, diffuse intensity, reflections, refractions, and then we've got our foam parameters. So let's just dive into our render and see what these parameters actually do here. So we've got our lighting set up for a scene automatically, and we're going to use kind of a stock environment light, and in our terrain mountain we're just going to view the regular out that we have here, and make sure in your ocean surface that we're rendering here the render grid. So you want to control click to set the render flag to the render grid there. So we just render this as a stock render, and I've already done this. What we're going to get is this right here, and it already looks pretty good. And we're obviously not concerning ourselves right now with the mountain, and I've actually turned off the displacement of the mountain so we don't have to calculate this. So in the terrain I've turned off the texture displacement, but it gives a nice kind of reference so we can see the ocean kind of in the shot better. So alright, this is a stock render and it already looks pretty good. You can kind of see what's going on in the waves that we're viewing here. So we just kind of dive in here under the ocean surface. If we start with the waves here, we can manually control and break these connections and control the height of the waves. I'm going to leave those as default. And if you see these lighter areas, kind of the lighter areas of the waves here, we can boost that further by increasing the diffuse intensity. So if we had some big rolling waves, this would appear a little bit more transparent in those areas. If we just kind of take a section here and boost this up to say 0.1, we could bring out a little bit more diffuse color in these wave areas. So you see here, by boosting the diffuse intensity, we're bringing up some of those lighter areas. I'm going to take this back down, and let's just go into the foam settings here. So we've got an overall particle radius scale. Obviously, if we increase this is going to increase the particle size of our wave particles here, which means that we're going to see them more. We can fade on and off the lifespan of the particles. I'm going to leave that at default. Mainly I want to take a look at the streak intensity and the whitecap intensity. So if we just kind of take a better area here, if we increase the streak intensity, say to 2, and take a render of that. So by boosting the streak intensity, we're bringing up those areas of the particles quite bright, just on purpose, so we can really see what it's doing. Let's take this back down and bring up the whitecap intensity. And here we go. So you can see the difference between the streaks and the whitecaps. The whitecaps obviously are just the tips here, and then the streak is kind of the rest of the foam particles that are on the surface of the water. So really, if we wanted to boost this whole thing, maybe 1 and 0.75, maybe we can see some more in the background here. So also you'll notice that we can't really notice the fade off of our particles. Remember, we faded it off around this area. So it's not really noticeable, you know, from say 2,000, 2,500 units and onward. So that's why we don't really need to sim that far into the background. There we go. So you can see now that we're just kind of boosting up these areas. Now we can get a better read on these white caps here and the streaks. So also we've got the reflections and refraction intensity of the foam, and as well as on the surface of the water, the refractions by default are at a 0.5. You know, if we boost this up to 1, you can see now the subtle changes that we're getting with the refractions. So you can kind of just play around with these and get something that you like, or match the reference that you're trying to match to. But going forward here, if we go down into the foam settings, we've also got an intensity wrap for the white caps and bubbles, and also we've got foam displacement. So we can actually choose to have the foam and the streaks be displaced quite a bit more. So if we were to just kind of really boost this to 1:1 and grab an area here, you'll see that we're displacing the particles or the surface of those areas quite a bit more. You can see now that we're really displacing up the areas of the water there, pretty unrealistically even. But we've got the option to pull out some height or some extra detail in those areas there. I'm going to take that back down to default as well. I'm not really going to change anything. And also in the ocean volume, we got the option to change the scattering and the density of the volume beneath it. But this is going to make more of a difference when it comes to, say, a flip sim and things like that, when we can start to see through the water a little bit more. So everything else I'm going to leave as is.